It's gonna do damage regardless. It's gonna seep in on your tent, wherever you touch it.
Work and the rent is killing everybody. Especially if you don't have no family here, it's worse.
The golden 72 hours and those outside the grid. When weather alerts issue red warnings for a major storm or record-breaking cold, supermarkets empty within hours. Gas stations become gridlocked. Those with homes rush to buy bottled water, backup batteries, and reinforce their windows. But just outside those tightly sealed doors, tens of thousands of people do not have a golden 72 hours to prepare. Their preparation cannot be purchased. For people experiencing homelessness, facing disaster does not mean turning on a backup generator. It means using their own bodies as shields against the full force of nature. In today's report, The Homeless Fact takes you into the eye of the storm to examine how, when city systems shut down, those without shelter adapt and survive through the unforgiving discipline of the sidewalk. If you care about the unseen realities of our society, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Empathy can be the starting point for meaningful change. When the warning sounds, preparation that money cannot buy. For those living on the streets, sirens and emergency alerts do not signal "seek safe shelter." Quite simply, safe shelter is not always available. As the city begins to panic, their preparation unfolds quietly, focused on the smallest details. They cannot stockpile food for weeks. There is nowhere to store it. Instead, they reinforce the only physical boundary they control: the tent. Ropes are tightened around trees or lampposts. Cardboard is elevated further from the ground to anticipate flooding. And most importantly, identification documents. ID cards, medical appointment slips, and faded family photographs are carefully wrapped in 2 or 3 layers of plastic bags and secured close to the body. Because they understand something clearly. A storm may sweep away a tent, but losing documents can mean being erased from the support system entirely. In the countdown to disaster, the objective is not comfort. It is not to disappear. The first night under a nylon tarp. When the storm truly makes landfall, every concept of safety fractures. A thin nylon tent under high winds is no longer shelter. It becomes a violently shaking membrane, threatening to tear apart at any moment. Inside, sleep is a luxury. Rain lashes from all directions, rising from the ground as floodwater seeps in, turning old blankets into ice-cold sponges. Mud and debris wash directly into the sleeping space. Those with experience do not lie down. They crouch or stand curled in the highest corner, using their own body weight to anchor the tent against the wind. The howl of gusts, the crack of thunder, and the distant wail of ambulances create crushing psychological pressure. There is no room for weakness. Every passing second becomes a mechanical struggle between the tensile strength of nylon and the limits of human endurance. When the relief system collapses, many ask, why don't they just go to shelters? In disasters, the answer is far harsher than theory suggests. When streets flood or blizzards freeze transportation, volunteers cannot reach encampments. Soup kitchens close. Shelters fill beyond capacity and lock their doors from the inside to maintain safety. Suddenly, people experiencing homelessness are cut off from their only lifelines. No hot soup, no dry blankets. The tent on the sidewalk becomes an isolated island in the middle of a city. Attempting to travel for help can become suicidal. When official support systems shut down, survival reverts to its most primitive state. Emergency hotlines are ringing busy. Rescue vehicles cannot navigate flooded alleys. At that point, life depends entirely on what is already in their hands. The invisible survival network on the sidewalk. It is in this complete isolation that a micro-society activates. Without central coordination, people living on the streets establish their own emergency network. Under overpasses or in partially flooded subway entrances, acts of life-saving sharing emerge. Half a bottle of clean water is passed from hand to hand. The driest, most wind-shielded corner is given to an elderly person or a mother with a child. When a tent is ripped open by wind, neighbors immediately pull the person inside their own shelter, sacrificing already limited space and oxygen. They shout through the storm to check in on one another, ensuring the next tent still responds. This invisible network is not documented in any official disaster management plan, yet it often becomes the first and last line of defense, preventing casualty numbers from rising. In the midst of catastrophe, compassion becomes the most powerful survival instinct of all. After the storm, starting again from negative. When the storm passes, the sky clears. News coverage shifts to restoring the power grid, clearing fallen trees, and calculating insurance losses. Those with homes begin cleaning up and breathe a cautious sigh of relief. But for people experiencing homelessness, the disaster has merely entered a new phase. If housed residents suffer property damage, unhoused individuals lose their entire survival ecosystem. Tents are torn apart or swept away. Clothing is soaked in mud and bacteria. Medication is ruined by water. They are not starting over from zero. They are starting over from negative. Physical exhaustion after multiple sleepless nights collides with the threat of disease from contaminated floodwater. They must gather scraps of nylon, request dry clothes again, while the city focuses on rebuilding macro-level infrastructure. Recovery, for them, does not mean flipping a circuit breaker back on. It means finding a way to survive tonight with empty hands. The newly homeless emerging from the rubble. Every natural disaster not only devastates those already living on the streets, but also sweeps through vulnerable households as well. A storm washes away a low-cost rental. A factory closes for a month due to flooding. A sudden medical bill results from a storm-related accident. The domino effect accelerates with startling speed. Families once living paycheck to paycheck, sweat-dried, money gone, suddenly find themselves standing alongside those they once passed on the sidewalk. The line between watching the storm from indoors and standing beneath it is thinner than macroeconomic data suggests. Disaster exposes a harsh truth. Losing a home is not always the result of personal failure. Sometimes it is simply a storm arriving at the wrong moment. Natural disasters do not discriminate by class, but resilience capacity does. The wounds that never make the news. When television cameras leave, the real medical and psychological battle begins on the streets. Surviving hurricane-force winds is only the first physical barrier. Floodwaters recede, leaving behind bacteria, sludge, and toxic residue. For someone without shelter, a small cut sustained while holding down a tent can quickly turn into a necrotic infection without clean water for disinfection. Pneumonia and respiratory syndromes surge after nights spent in damp, freezing conditions. More devastating still are the psychological wounds. The helplessness of watching one's last possessions stripped away by nature deepens trauma. PTSD intensifies. The health system, overwhelmed in the aftermath, rarely prioritizes patients without permanent addresses, pushing them into a silent struggle for survival in a city that is supposedly recovering. Rebuilding from forgotten doors. Post-disaster reconstruction is often measured in miles of repaved roads, repaired substations, or the speed of supply chain recovery. But the true resilience of a city should be measured by how it treats its most vulnerable citizens during and after the storm. Providing a dry blanket or a bowl of hot soup is humane, but not enough. Breaking this brutal survival cycle requires flexible social housing policies, field medical stations that do not demand paperwork, and a safety net that does not drop people when they are weakest. May those forced to use their own bodies as shields against the storm soon find solid ground, timely support, and the chance to rebuild their lives. And may we not remember them only when the sirens sound. Amen. Thank you for watching this report from The Homeless Fact. If these raw realities offer you a deeper understanding of social life, please support us by liking and subscribing. In your view, what must social safety systems change so that battles like these no longer unfold in the heart of developed cities? Leave your thoughts in the comments below.
you.